Sides, totals, and props. We have it all here on WagerTalk TV. Guys, welcome into Puck Time. I am Andrew. I have Carmine and Bryan with me to break down 3 games. Plus, Bryan will do one on his own. Then we'll have best bets at the end of the show. Guys, it is Thursday, but it's also Half Price Thursday. Every single play up and available at WagerTalk.com for today only. 50% off. Make sure you guys check that out. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump into the games. Flames, Wild, Lightning, Oilers, Panthers, and Canucks. Carm, what do you think about this Wild team tonight? They play host to the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, Andrew, the price here, I looked at the price. It's like minus 160 on Minnesota, plus 135 on Calgary right now. And while Calgary might look attractive in this game, at what point do we start to talk about Calgary and just say there's something functionally wrong with this team? I think it's a conversation we should have had a long time ago. When you think they're starting to put it together. They lose 5 of their last 6. They beat Carolina 3-2 amongst those 6, but they've allowed 11 goals, or you can even look at it. They've allowed 15 goals in their last 3 games, all losses. And they're playing a Minnesota team that is starting to play better. Minnesota, we got off to a completely miserable start, then strung together 4 wins. They lose a couple games, but you got to look at the fact that they played the Edmonton Oilers, who are playing extremely well right now and have won 8 straight games. They lose that one, and they lose to a Vancouver team that a respectable game finishes. That game finishes 2-0. Vancouver playing extremely well, still not getting a lot of market respect, it seems, as far as the Canucks go. But then they put in a very good effort in Seattle. They win 3-0 in that one, and they're just playing extremely well right now. You look at this, and these 2 teams did play once prior. They played in Calgary. Minnesota wins that game 5-2 with probably the same goalies we're going to see tonight, which are Gustafsson and Vidar in that game. The XG numbers in that game were 3.43 to 2.75 or 74. Now, why do I mention the XG? Because the number pretty much landed just a little over 6. This total opened at 6. And I'm seeing it now on the WagerTalk live lines sitting at about 6.5. I think it's sitting at 6.5, which has me looking at the under, because we talk about, and I talked about it in one of the games earlier this week, where I talked about the best way to get back to winning ways is to start playing some defense, and Calgary has to sort of find some defense. Minnesota already has it. Gustafsson, his last 9 starts, 7 have gone under the total. One of the games that didn't go over the total was obviously this 5-2 game here, but Minnie's playing extremely well right now. I like the way they're playing, and I just don't see this going over the total. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, and I'm going to take under 6.5 here. Bryan, what are your thoughts?
My first thought is I watched the show yesterday, and you put up the advertisement for the 50% off for today. If Dan could put that back up again. I know you guys were complaining that you were in the back of the you were in the back there. I'm still looking for my picture in that video. I am still employed here. Nobody's fired me as far as I know. I know I had a bad day yesterday. Terrible day yesterday, my worst day of the season. But am I still employed by this company? What the hell's going on over here?
Well, you were actually asked to report to HR after this show, if that's possible. If you can do that, I really appreciate it.
I can show up an hour. I can show up an hour early and go there right now if you like.
Did you send in your new picture? Is the question, Bryan? Did you send in your new picture?
New picture in months ago, and they've never used it. So that tells you what they think of my beauty. Getting back to the hockey game here, Calgary and Minnesota. I'm looking at this a little bit differently. I have been a little bit impressed by the way the Flames have played as of late. You take a look at their last 10 games, 5-on-5 play, 48.00 goal for percentage, 52.80 expected goal percentage. So they've actually underperformed a little bit, but yet I think they're playing very well. There was 50 goals scored in 5-on-5 play the last 10 games for Calgary. So anytime I'm looking at a Calgary game right now, and you guys do more on the totals than I do, but you got to think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Getting 5 goals a game, not even including any of the power plays, that's something I always take a look at, and it makes me want to point towards the over here. But the Flames hosted Minnesota just 9 days ago and lost that game 5-2. Minnesota, you take a look at their goal against, it was 63.64 goals for, which is excellent. Expected goals 55.61 in the last 10 games. So they are playing very good ball in Minnesota ever since, even before the coaching change. But they're playing a little bit over their heads right now. And in fact, in their last 10 games, there's only been 33 goals. So I look at this, and to me, it seems to be correlated. If you like Calgary, you like the over. If you like Minnesota, you like the under. I've been impressed by the way Calgary played. I mean, a lot of these teams that have been playing this week have had some really tough schedules going on, and Calgary is one of them. They've had to play, Colorado and Vegas. It's their third game in 4 nights, fourth and 6. And both those games against Colorado and Vegas went down to the wire. Really exciting games. Unfortunately, the one against Colorado didn't work out for me, as I had Calgary as a nice underdog on that day's plays. But I like the way Calgary's playing. I think Minnesota's overplaying their hand right now. Prefer the Calgary side here, but maybe I'll get to the point where I could play Calgary goals over or something. It's a tough matchup for me because I see an under team. Calgary, I see an over team. If the line goes up anymore, I may be on Calgary here.
Brian, you made a point there, which is it's a very valid point. If you like Calgary, you're probably going to want to take the over. If you like Minnesota, you want to take the under, and that's why maybe we're like mano a mano on this one, you and I, because I like Minnesota in this spot. But my thought process is similar to what it was a couple days ago with Carolina, a Carolina team that was struggling on that road trip, not just playing, just allowing goals. And I thought the best way for Carolina to get back to playing their type of hockey is it starts from the defense out. They go to Ottawa in that game, and at least early, it looked like I was completely wrong with taking the under in that game. And then the game finishes 4-1. Carolina puts on a strong defensive performance. I think the same thing is similar here. I think Calgary is not going to score their way out of this slump. I think they do have to play some D. But it's a game in which, because I think I'm leaning towards Minnesota, I think Minnesota dictates how this game is played, and it's a lower scoring game. So the fact that if it was at 6, I would not be on this game. At 6.5, I do like it. So, and I got to get a little bit of that puck luck that goes my way. My God, Andrew, I'm going to throw it to you, but Mark Scheifele, I have the shots prop on him. A couple nights ago, he doesn't get there. Last night, he scores an empty net goal with 1.3 seconds left to squash my under bet. That was a push until it was no longer a push.
I know that's the thing that I've learned about props, Carm. And Andy Lang is someone that's done a good job of teaching me this, but unfortunately, I haven't really been a good student of the game when learning this. Is that if you bet a prop, I feel like you almost have to bet that guy for a couple games in a row. Because for a fact, if you bet someone to score a goal and they get a bunch of chances one night and you don't bet them the next day, they're going to get a hat trick. You bet someone to not get an assist, they're going to get an assist on the first goal, but the next 3 games, they will not get an assist. It's one of those things where I believe now my new approach for props is if you see some guy on a streak, 8 of his last 10 games, he's gone over points or over whatever. I hate being that guy that ruins the streak. If I jump in and I'm like, oh, it's my fault. Well, you have to go in the next game as well. So that is the worst because you jump in, it doesn't get it, and the guy plays well the next day. So I'm going to try and, for me personally, when I'm on props now, for that reason that you were just complaining about, is riding somebody more than one in a row. Because for a fact, Carm, it happens all the time, just like I'm saying, you take a guy, that night they won't get it done for you, and the next night they go ahead and clutch it up and play very well. It's painful to watch. Guys, this is kind of like a theory that I've talked about for a while now. I believe that if a team plays another team within a week and a half to 2 weeks, I often say, and it's worked out very well so far this year, whatever happened to the total in the first meeting, I usually go the opposite in the second meeting. And I went against my own rule a few weeks ago. I think it was with the Tampa Bay game against Dallas, and it proved that going against it wasn't a good thing because Tampa Bay responded, but they responded in low-scoring fashion after they got blown out in their first one. So we obviously saw the first game of these two go over. It was 5-2, just barely going over here. This time I do expect the under to cash in, but I'm actually on Calgary here. I like the price. And to Brian's point, I think that if you do like Calgary, you don't really have to run to the window. There's no rush, I don't think, to get this bet in. But I'm a huge fan of recency, right? Like, I think that when you look at NHL season stats as a whole, can really skew your handicapping because there's no point in looking at it from the start of the season. You want to look at the past week, the past month, the past, however many days. And since December 1st, Calgary ranks number 13 in expected goals for. We're seeing Minnesota number 31 in the league. Like, this is a thing. Like, I understand the whole expected thing. People say, well, for example, my Montreal Canadiens, I believe, are like number 7 or 8 on that list. Doesn't mean those guys are scoring, but it shows to me that I believe that Calgary is making the right plays and deserves better. And I think during Minnesota's stretch where they fired their coach, went on a big run, and everybody loved them for a week, I was a big hater and said, you know what? A lot of that was against weaker teams, making good chances, good out of their opportunities. I don't think that Minnesota is a good hockey team. I know Calgary's not playing very well. Minnesota has had a few wins against good teams, but I like this price quite a bit. So I'm going to take Calgary here. The fact that they're near the bottom, Minnesota, in expected goals, they're scoring some dirty goals and things like that, but I believe Calgary deserves better. So it's always tough when you take a team that's only won one game in their last 7, but I believe this is a good spot for them. Also lean towards the under in this one. And I do kind of agree with that correlation there with the under and over with these two teams. Let's move on to game number 2. Of course, this one's going to be a good one here, Brian. We've got the Tampa Bay Lightning and Edmonton Oilers going head-to-head. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
First of all, I want to apologize for the lawn work being done outside. The sound is coming from my speakers, so we are getting some lawn work done. Good timing on his regard. This game, at one point, I thought was going to be a huge play for me. The overnight line was sitting at 150, and it stayed at 150. It was not moving at all, and I thought I may have overlooked something because there's no way Edmonton, the way they are playing, should be a 150 favorite against Tampa. And I went in, I did all my work on it, and I come back and I said, that's got to be a play. And then I wake up this morning and it's at the 170 range. My fault for not giving it out to clients last night at 150. I still think there's value on Edmonton here, but lost opportunity, and I blame it on myself here. We faded the Lightning with much success this year, and I still feel this is an overrated squad. You take a look at the last 10 games, 5-on-5 play, goal for percentage is just 42.11 with an expected goal percentage of 52.15. So they are playing better than their recent results. There's been 44 goals scored in those games on 5-on-5 play, which is 4.4 a game. 7 of their last 10 games have come on the road, and this is their 4th of 5 away on this trip. So the only victory came in overtime at Seattle. So you got a team that's been on the road lately and haven't been getting it done. Edmonton is in the midst of a 6-game homestand. In the first 4 games, they outscored the opposition 18-6. Over the last 10 5-on-5 play, the Oilers have a goal for percentage of 58.7, expected goal percentage of 58.53. So we're getting what they deserve. There is nothing fluky about what's going on right now with Edmonton. They've outscored the competition in those 10 games, 27-19 in 5-on-5 play. Sure, the Lightning have been on the road. They play the tougher schedule being on that road. But the Oilers have been at home. Sure, I understand that. But how do you go against Edmonton here, the way they're playing right now? I joked about this last time I was on about the fading the Tampa Bay. They still haven't shown me enough to want to back them here. This is a totally different Tampa Bay team that they've had the last few years. And even though I blew the chance of playing them at 150, that's still the only way I would take a look at this one in Edmonton. The way they're playing right now, they've just been dominating. And we've seen this from them in the past, but this is a different level for Edmonton. I've been very impressed by the way they're playing lately. And if they play anywhere like they have lately, Edmonton's going to win this game, no problem whatever.
All right, Brian, looking towards the home team, the Edmonton Oilers, certainly playing some great hockey here, Carmine. And, that's why I just mentioned hockey is about recency, not about what you've seen on a whole. We've talked about the expected goals against for this Edmonton team. And you mentioned to me, Carmine, about the fact that just in general, the goals against and shots allowed for Edmonton. Didn't you tell me, Carmine, that they were like number one in the league or top in the league as far as not allowing that many shots, and yet they were losing games? So they've certainly figured it out. Tampa Bay has been a bad road team. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is still the same team that were completely terrible at the beginning of the season. The only thing that's changed with this team is the coach. They haven't brought anybody else in. They don't have a new goalie. It's a different coach with a different philosophy, and he's getting them to play a different game. I'm going to be a little out there on the play I give out on this one, but you look at it. You talk about this 8-game stretch for the Oilers, and they've allowed 13 goals in 8 games. 1.63 goals per game is what they've allowed thus far. Which is unbelievable for the Oilers, because at the beginning of the season, all we talked about is their defensive play, making mistakes. They weren't allowing a lot of shots on goal, but what they were allowing were goals, because it was defensive miscues, and the shots teams were getting on net were going in. But that's not happening right now. They did have, when we had that conversation, which was just a few days ago, Andrew, they averaged the lowest allowed shots on goal per game. I'm not sure if that's still the same, but they haven't played much since. Now, these two teams did play last month in Tampa. That game finished 6-4 in that one. So I get it. You might want to look at it and say this game's got to go over the total. If you look at like the market movers from last night to tonight, and even like the totals, there hasn't been a lot of movement. The only big market movers in this game, on the WagerTalk screen, is Carolina that went up about 25 cents. This game and the Minnesota game for both Mini and Edmonton have gone up 20 cents, and then the Leaf game, where they're a huge favorite against Columbus, went up about 25 cents. But the totals have pretty much remained consistent. And Oiler totals, we're so used to seeing them 6.5, -130, -135, -140. You see sevens. You're not. It's sitting at 120, 6.5, which is a normal 6.5 type of line. I would lean to the under here. The only problem is that the Oilers could do an abundance of scoring and push this game over the total, winning something like 5-2. I'm actually going, and it's a little out there, but I'm going with the Tampa team total under in this one. Under 2.5 is +110, and that's where I'm leaning here. I think the Oilers D continues to play the way they are. I think, much like Brian said, I think the Lightning are a little overrated at this point still, and they're getting a little more respect in the markets than since some teams that should be getting the respect, kind of like the Vancouver Canucks, who we'll be talking about next. But I'm going to go under the team total here, under 2.5 shots on goal. 6 of the 8 games during this streak have stayed for the Oilers. The team total for their opposition has stayed under 2.5 goals. So that's where I'm going here.
I love that, Carm, because you know what? When the Oilers win, they could push that total over themselves. So isolating one team to go under their team total, great way to go into that one. First and foremost, I just want to mention a few player props. And the first one I want to talk about was Evan Bouchard, defenseman for the Edmonton Oilers, a guy that I don't think gets enough love, guys, into the NHL overall in defenseman conversations. You hear about Makar every day. You hear about all these great defensemen. Nobody talks about Bouchard because, well, I guess because he's on the same team as Connor McDavid, right? Evan Bouchard has a point in 10 straight games. 10 straight games. But even better, he has an assist in 8 of his last 10 games. So the best part about this with these defensemen, guys, even though Bouchard has scored a few goals, his number for him to get a point is on the track of 160, 165, even 170 at some shops. You look at Evan Bouchard to record an assist, if you shop around, you can get minus 120. So, besides the rare couple times where he's going to cash a plus 400 ticket for you on a goal, you need to narrow in on where are these points coming from. And that's the best part about hockey. When you're betting a point prop, you're getting a goal, a primary assist, and a secondary assist. And I've always found points very weird in hockey. Like, for people that don't know at home, you can literally shoot the puck off a goalie's pads and your teammate can go and get the rebound and score, and you get an assist on that. It's very, very interesting how it works in hockey, but Evan Bouchard is somebody that we should all be aware of right now during the Edmonton Oilers run. And then also, especially off a loss, Nikita Kucherov over on his shots on goal. Now, it's at 3.5. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets to 4.5 at some point. It is a little bit chalky, but especially off losses. I went back and looked. This guy is just flying over. It's not even like he's just barely going over. Looking at some of these numbers for Kucherov in some of these games, we're seeing 6, we're seeing 8, we're seeing 7 shots, and his attempts are super high right now. He made a joke to the media that he's trying to break Ovechkin's records as far as all the shots on goal per game. And one reason, guys, I believe that that's happening with Lightning is because their lack of depth. Nikita Kucherov's always been a great player, but I believe he's realized he's had to put the backpack on and carry this team a little bit more than he ever had to. So I think in this bounce back effort for Tampa Bay after losing their previous game, this is a spot to look at some player props. So looking at that, also Zach Hyman's playing very well. But when I look at this game here, I've really decided that Tampa Bay at home versus Tampa Bay on the road are two different teams. I don't know if they're out, celebrating their past accomplishments on the road and having too much wine and drinks, but they're playing way different at home versus on the road. And at home, I just trust them better, more defensively than they do on the road, which is why I would look towards Edmonton's team total over 3.5. That way, Carmine and I can both win. Tampa Bay gets shut down, and Edmonton goes up and over their team total. So that's what I'm looking at, guys. A few player props to keep in mind. And just remember, with those defensemen, looking at the point props is good, but the assist prop is where you want to go because you're going to get a way better price on that. So just a few things there, a few quick ideas as far as different betting angles for that game. Bryan, you have a game that you're going to talk about on your own. And it's obviously a bigger slate today than it was yesterday. Not really a massive Thursday slate, but I'm curious what you have for us, man.
Yeah, I want to take a look at this Washington-Philadelphia matchup. Last 10 games, 5-on-5 play. Capitals, 51.35. Goal for percentage. Expected goals, 48.70. So they've outscored the opposition 19-18. And on the season, they played 12 games at home and just 8 on the road, yet they've been outscored by 4 goals overall on the year. This is a team that slightly outperformed expected numbers the last 10 and are even more fortunate on the season with a 12-6-2 record. This is a team right now in Washington, and I've made some good money playing on Washington this year. I thought they were a little underrated. But if you take a look at what their record is based on how many actual goals they're scoring, I think this is a team we can go against. The Flyers, on the other hand, 11-10-2 on the year with a net +2 scoring advantage. So they've got a slightly losing record and are outscoring the opposition slightly. They played more balanced schedule, 12 at home, 11 on the road. Over the last 10 games, 5-on-5 play, their goal for percentage is 47.06. Expected goal percentage of 55.77. This is a team right now in the Flyers who are underperforming what they've done so far in the last 10 games, but this talent level has gotten much better this year on Philadelphia. They're buying into what the coach is selling. They've been outscored in those 10 games, 18-16 on 5-on-5. Schedule-wise, the Capitals have had the past 3 days off after beating Chicago on the road 4-2, and they had upset the Rangers at home 4-0 the night before that. So back-to-back big wins out of Washington. I think that sets them up for failure here. Philadelphia returns home off a successful 3-game road trip, winning at Arizona and Colorado before dropping that 3-2 overtime game in Nashville, in which they dominated play in that one. And of course, I had Philadelphia in that game and thought they were the better team. They were the better team all the way through and lose in overtime. That's the only Flyers loss in the month of December. So while returning from a road trip is an overall negative, in my opinion, it's just 3 games, and they had to be kicking themselves for the way they lost that game against the Predators. A confident team right now, as I mentioned, that's the only loss they've had in December. The line's fair here. I think Philadelphia is a team that's on the rise, and Washington's a team that we could fade right now, as I believe they've peaked after the last 2 games that they have played. Give me Philadelphia here.
I think those are 2 teams, Brian, that surprised us at the start of the season, but I would agree with you that one out of those 2 teams was a little more faulty than the other. I think that we can see Philadelphia keep going, whereas Washington was just overachieving a little bit. So I like that one quite a bit. Nice to get an extra game in here. Carm, we're going to go to you for your thoughts. We're going to go to Western Canada, Canucks hosting the Florida Panthers. And you and I talk about kryptonites, man. And I'll tell you what, this Florida Panthers team, they're like a roller coaster. They're up and down. It's hard to get a read on what they really are. I'm curious what you think about this matchup.
I like that game from Brian. So, Brian, I'm with you on that play. And guys, don't forget the 50% off at WagerTalk today. That applies not only to today's packages, but packages that might have been already preloaded for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday over at WagerTalk. And I have a 5% play in the NFL on Sunday. So that's priced at half price, but goes back to regular price at midnight. Andrew, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but I put 3 games on today's show where it is Canada versus the US. We should have had a line on this over 1.5 wins by Canadian teams tonight. You guys in the chat can tell us what you think. Over 1.5, minus 110 on Canadian teams winning tonight. That you would need either Calgary, 2 of 3 teams, Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver, to win tonight. So let's get to this game. We talked about how the market values some teams, and Tampa seems to get a lot of respect, or more respect than maybe they're entitled to. And I get it, 2-time Stanley Cup champions, finalists another year, but listen, this Vancouver team isn't getting the respect they deserve, and they're not getting the respect tonight. You got Florida coming in at 115, and this is one of those few times where I'm going to agree with the market on this one, that Florida should be favored. I think the Panthers were, if you watch the Panthers game, their last game, they were absolutely flat against the Seattle Kraken. That wasn't the Kraken. There was no case to be made from an analytical point of view, from a eye test point of view, anything, that the Kraken had that kind of a game in them. But they got it done. They beat Florida, and I just don't know where that came from. And I'm taking Florida to bounce back in this spot. I think that wasn't the best game for Florida to start out west. Now they go to Vancouver to play this one, and we're getting such a low and a good price on a team that I think is a better team overall. This is a team that made it to the Stanley Cup Finals last year, and unfortunately, injuries took its toll on this team, and maybe a little bit of rapid revenge, if you want to call it that, because last month Vancouver went to Florida and beat them 5-3 in that game. So I just think Florida is the right play here. I get it. Vancouver, they lose a game here or there, a couple of games in a row, we think that regression is about to hit them, and then they smack you right in the face with a fine performance, which they did last time out. But this is one where I think they're playing a team that can check very well. They can play a team that is can be a little bit physical, and they can play, and they're playing a team that I like their goalie as well too. With that said, I'm going to take Florida here. I'm going to lay the minimal 115 on this team. Look for them to avenge that loss at home to Vancouver and get the W tonight. And I'm sure Brian Leonard is going to disagree with me, but let me hear it for myself. Brian, what do you like here?
Muted.
Brian doesn't want to tell us what he thinks right now, so
Yeah,
we will.
good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, I was
I
very
think he was
complimentary of you,
swearing. I wish
but
I
you
could
didn't
hear
hit
what he
it.
was saying.
I can't repeat myself. I was just saying how great of a handicapper you are. But yeah, I would say if I were to play the side in this game that you were on the right side here, Florida, off of that bad performance. But over the last 10 games, 5-on-5 action, Panthers 51.52 goal for percentage, 54.66 expected goal percentage. So not quite as good as they should be, but they're doing well. 33 goals have been scored in that 5-on-5 play, and as you mentioned, they're looking to avenge that high-scoring home loss, that 5-3 loss to the Canucks in October. During the same time frame, Vancouver goal for percentage of 56.10, expected goals of 51.55. So they're a little overplaying their advanced stats. 41 total goals have been scored in 5-on-5 in the last 10 games. The Canucks have won 3 straight and are playing their final contest of a 5-game homestand. They permitted just 4 total goals in the past 3 contests. Vancouver, I believe Andrew talked about this in the past. Vancouver is a team that I think is a better defensive team than what they have shown. Florida, I know, can really clamp down on defense. I gave this to my clients yesterday at under 6.5. It's under 6 now. You're getting a better price, obviously. But this is my one game I gave clients, I put up for clients, and is our only play we use today. So for tuning in today, you're going to get my best bet on the card, our only play on the card in hockey. That's going to be the under here, as I expect defenses to dominate here. 2 teams that have impressed me on the season. Florida, you go back and look at what they did to get to the championship last year. I thought they'd have a little bit of a letdown. They haven't. They've been very consistent. And Vancouver, I continue to wait to see them falter as they got off to that great start. But now that they'll lose a couple games, but then come back and win 3 more. So 2 teams that are definite teams that have a shot to make the playoffs and go a decent way in the playoffs this year. Should be a really good hockey game. I'm going to play the under.
All right, Brian. So we have the under there, but I'm going to look towards the team total over for the Panthers. So let's try and find a way that we can figure this out, guys. Look, this is the thing is that I look at the defense for the Vancouver Canucks, and I understand, I usually don't mind being quoted, Brian, but being quoted there doesn't really help my case because I did say that they're a better defensive team than they have been. But Thatcher Demko, his numbers and the goals save above expected, he leads. He's number 1 as far as all these advanced metrics in goaltending, right? And I've been waiting for these numbers to crash. But when you watch Canucks games, you realize how often they activate their defensemen. Like their defensemen are all up in the rush. And to me, that can become very dangerous when you have a team like Florida that excels in counterattacking. Like they love to turn defense into offense. It's kind of like, in basketball, a team gets a defensive rebound and they get on the run, right? If Florida, they have a very good breakout system. They can catch their opponent off guard. And I believe Vancouver gives up a ton of 2-on-1s and Thatcher Demko bails them out. So this to me is an opportunity to get Florida not happy. I mean, Carm mentioned it. We could go a lot further. I mean, Carm was nice to them. I mean, they embarrassed themselves against Seattle. They didn't even show up. I mean, they should have just started the plane after the first period. That's how bad they looked. I mean, they looked like Seattle was a Stanley Cup contender, the way they played that game. Now they have a complete opposite game. It's tough to bounce back in a game against one of the best teams in the league. They don't get to bounce back against a poor team. They got to bounce back against the Canucks. But I do believe they will. I think the first team to 4 wins this game. And I just love the fact that you turn this price into a plus 115, plus 120 here on the Florida Panthers. I think the Canucks have been giving up chances, but I also think that the way that Florida plays, the way they score goals, is a good way to beat goalies like Thatcher Demko. When you watch Florida Panther games last year throughout the playoffs, Leaf fans and all the fans throughout the Rangers, Hurricane, all these teams were wondering, how the hell are the Panthers doing so well? My answer is that if you watch them, you're not often going to be blown away by skill. You're going to just see them playing hockey the right way. They score tap-ins, they score around the net, they score the dirty goals. You know those guys on your team that nobody wants to play against, but everybody would love to have them, like Brad Marchand? That's what Matthew Tkachuk is, right? He scores some nice goals, but he also scores some goals that are nobody would really want to watch. They just work for them. And I feel like that's a team that can win against the Vancouver Canucks. So I have faith in Florida tonight to bounce back, but I'm going to take the team total up and over 3.5 at a plus 115 price there. So hopefully they get there, but Brian and I can both cash. We'll see how we can do it. We'll try and make it all work for everybody here on this show. And again, like Carmine mentioned, every play available for half off today. But as mentioned, very important. If you guys don't really want to buy a play for today, just remember, we've got bowl games. We've got NFL action on both Saturday and Sunday. Man, it's a bad weekend to be my girlfriend. She's not going to see me. Maybe it'll be a good weekend actually to not see me, but I'll be on the couch all weekend long. I cannot wait to watch all these games. And guys, I've got some action in the NFL already. A top play loaded. Carmine's got a 5%. I'm sure Brian has a ton in action, or at least some strong plays. So half off today. So if you guys are looking for plays for the weekend, make sure you check that out. But enough of that. Let's get to more plays. Best bet time. Carmine, over to you.
I think I speak for myself and every single person in chat, along with Brian Leonard, that none of us would want to be your girlfriend. Listen, co-hosting with you is fantastic, but I got to draw the line somewhere, man. But with that said, Andrew, you have a fantastic girl, man. I'm going to look at a shot prop. And this is one I had done a free play video up. It's up on the WagerTalk site as well, too. And it is it is a client play as well, too. When I'm looking at shot props, I'm normally looking at teams that allow a lot of shots on goal. You look at the St. Louis Blues, and they allow, I think it's 32.43 shots on goal per game. The Blues do. And you have Ottawa Senators team is starting to play a little bit better. They're starting to get some wins, and a lot of that is because they're starting to fire more pucks on goal. They're getting more offensive minded. Their last 6 games, they've had 217 shots on goal, which is 36.2 shots on goal per game. And Josh Norris, he's gone over his total his last 3 games. 5 of his last 6, he's gone over his number. And his number's 2.5 minus 120 tonight, and that's where I'm going. So we're going to go with Josh Norris to get 3 or more shots on goal tonight for the Ottawa Senators in St. Louis. As far as stuff that's up for me, soccer package going today, final day of the Europa League. And then all of these competitions stop until the playoffs start in February. NHL card will be up shortly. And then, of course, the NFL 5% play is up. You can get all of those for 50% off today. Brian Leonard, give us a free play winner.
Well, first of all, the only bad weekend my girlfriend has had was when my wife found out about her. Other than that, it's been smooth sailing. I'll go back to the Florida Vancouver game.
That might be your best one yet, Brian. That might be your best one yet. I like that one.
Thank you. Glad to get a smile out of you. Yeah, Florida Vancouver. We just talked about it, so I won't go much into it. But the under there is the way I'm looking at this one, and that's my best play. In fact, it's the only play I have for sale today. So no need to tout what we've got going on today. I know it's $12.50. It'll save you $12.50 by not buying it. No need for that, as we got the under in the Florida Vancouver game. Spend your money on these other 2 grade NHL handicappers and the other guys that are on the show week in and week out. So you can pass on me today. You've already got my best bet.
Great stuff, Brian. Man, really, really nice of you to say that. You're having an unbelievable season, and wish you a great weekend. So many great sports going on right now, and I know people are definitely interested still in the daily packages, but we always encourage people to get those 7-day passes, 30-day passes, and kind of see what somebody's able to do for an extended period of time, and not just go play by play. But for the half off, I've got a 5% NFL play for the weekend. So my half off play, we all get one, I believe it's all of us getting one, is for the NFL this weekend. Prop run has been really, really strong, and it's a prop play, guys. So as you know, with the prop market, the numbers usually come out around, Wednesday, and the numbers move throughout the week. So join me on this to make sure you're getting the best number on my prop bet that I have up for a 5% play. But I'm going to also go to the NHL market for my best bet. And my best bet's going to be over 6.5 in the Ottawa and St. Louis game. If you talk to many, many handicappers, and I have to shout out Dave Koken because he's made so much money betting on teams and looking for them to do very well after they fire their coach. Craig Berube gets fired overnight for the St. Louis Blues. Sometimes when a coach gets fired, the team plays better offensively. Sometimes they play better defensively. The way I look at it for this St. Louis Blues team, they need to pick up their pace, play a faster brand of hockey. I believe they will do that. And what better team to do that against than the Ottawa Senators? Ottawa's off an under type of game. That's because Carolina shut them down. I expect fireworks tonight when the St. Louis Blues and Ottawa Senators go head-to-head. So I will take up and over 6.5. And I do have a deal going right now for a 30-day NHL pass. Save $50 at checkout by using the promo code SAVE50, SAVE50, to take $50 off my 30-day NHL pass. All right, guys, that does it for our show here today. Wager Talk today coming up at 12 o'clock Eastern time. Great group of guests on that one. So on behalf of Carmine and Brian, I'm Andrew.